Hi, hello everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Derek Tran. I am the representative from California's 45th District. I am honored to announce that the first bill I will introduce as a member of Congress is the Protect Veteran Jobs Act. The men and women who serve our country deserve our unwavering support, not broken promises. The indiscriminate firing of veterans by the Trump administration and Elon Musk's Doge dishonors the unwavering commitment that these public servants have dedicated to our country. These heroes stepped up for us, and now we must stand up for them. The issue is deeply personal to me. I am the son of Vietnamese refugees who fled war and persecution in search of safety and a better life in America. This country welcomed them and gave me a chance to succeed. I joined the Army out of a sense of duty to my country because I wanted to give back to the country that gave me so much. I wanted to protect the very principles of freedom, justice, and decency that we hold dear. But I don't see those values in the actions by the Trump administration. I see only division, fear, and cruelty. I have a duty as a congressman, as a veteran, as a proud American to stand up for those who made the highest commitment to us. It is my honor to introduce the Protect Veteran Jobs Act to reinstate veterans who were recklessly terminated under the Trump administration's dishonorable purge of the federal workplace and hold the executive branch accountable for any future terminations that may occur. This isn't about politics. This is about basic decency. Veterans make up 30% of the federal workforce, and when we are unjustly removed, it impacts all of us. From delays in healthcare and disability claims to staffing shortages at the VA, the consequence is dire. Veterans have our back. We must have theirs. I hope my colleagues will join me in supporting this important bill. Veterans gave up everything for us. It's time we give back. Thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to introduce and welcome back former Rep. Max Rose.
Congressman, thank you for your extraordinary leadership and introducing this absolutely pivotal bill, and for standing for all that's great about the United States of America. Over the course of the last month, President Trump and Doge have announced their new policy on veterans, and that is, you're fired. You cannot say thank you for your service. You cannot say you have done so much for this country and you have so much left to contribute, and at the same time engage in these indiscriminate firings. It is not just our veterans that are at a loss as a consequence of these actions, but it is our entire nation. Because I can tell you, having served and continue to serve myself, and every single person that's put on the uniform knows this, the people who get the job done are our veterans. As a consequence of these firings, we are weaker as a nation, we are less safe as a nation, and it must be reversed. And with the introduction and the eventual passage of this bill, that is exactly what will happen. And I can tell you, speaking on behalf of Vote Vets and all these other organizations that fight for veterans each and every day, there are millions of people stand behind you, sir, and this bill. And with that, it is my privilege to introduce Albert Ostering, who has dedicated years and years of service to this country, who's a veteran, and who was so sadly and unfortunately a part of these firings over the course of this last week. With that, sir.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you. The first thing I want to do is make sure I thank Congressman Tran for sponsoring this bill, putting this bill forward as his first bill. This is a bill that is very important to people like me and people that are in the federal workforce that are dedicating our lives to continuing to serve this country in any way possible. I am a veteran. I don't commonly announce that. That's not something I make as part of my identity. I'm proud of my service. I'm proud of the time I served in the United States Air Force, but I'm just here for the American people to do the best in my career I can. After I left the Air Force in the late 90s, I had the opportunity to once again serve our government as a federal employee. I took a position with the Department of Defense working alongside a Marine Corps cyber protection team where our job was to go out and detect advanced adversarial threats, nation-state level actors that are trying to compromise our system and disrupt the American way of life. Most recently, I was in CISA. I took a promotion. I went to work with CISA. I worked there for a number of years and got another promotion, which put me into a probationary status. On Valentine's Day, I was watching a movie with my wife, enjoying our 20-odd years of marriage, and I happened to get an email that came in on my work phone at about 10 o'clock at night. Being a federal employee, I keep an eye on that phone, even though I'm off duty. I don't know when we're needed. Instead of a call to action, instead of a call for me to go and defend a network or get out there and do something, I got an email stating I was being let go for performance issues. In my 10-year career with the federal service, I have not received a single negative performance review. Every review I've gotten has been exceptional or outstanding through my entire time. Prior to that, just as building up my skills, I spent 6 years as a defense contractor in network engineering in Southcom, which contributed to my vast array of knowledge. I then transitioned, as I said, to CISA, where my skills were continuing to grow and continue to be developed. Without warning to me or my immediate supervisor, I was fired and let go in the middle of the night. My family relies on my job for our livelihood, our health insurance. And this is not just a blow to my family, but this is also going to disrupt vital projects I was working on as part of the critical infrastructure protection teams with CISA. My leadership was not directly consulted with this. When I spoke with them, they were confused as to the reason for my termination, stating I have never had a single disciplinary or performance-related concern with them. We must hold the people responsible accountable for firing veterans like me without cause. We are the people who are continuing to work to defend our networks, to defend our nation, whether it's in health or any other division out there. Veterans do make up a significant portion of our service. I do want to once again thank Congressman Tran for standing with veterans. I implore both sides of the aisle to listen to this. This is a bill that should be easily supported. If you guys say you support the vets, if you guys say you thank the vets, if you thank me for my service, then thank me for my service, please.
Thank you, Albert. Good job. Good job.
I'm Mike Levin, and I represent California's 49th Congressional District, which includes San Diego and Orange County and Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton. I want to thank Representative Tran for introducing this important bill. I wish his bill weren't necessary, but it is. The reality right now, and Albert said it better than I can, is outrageous. You have veterans who have served our country in the military, who have looked to continue that service in the federal workforce, and who are now being fired by Elon Musk and his destruction of government by Elon. That's what DOGE really stands for, destruction of government by Elon. For 6 years, I was the chair and the ranking member on the House Veterans Affairs Committee Subcommittee on Economic Opportunity with jurisdiction over hiring our veterans, over employment opportunities and educational opportunities for our veterans. We made great bipartisan progress. And then now I'm on the House Appropriations Committee with oversight over the VA budget. And what you just heard is exactly right. You hear members from both parties thanking veterans, saying they support veterans. So how could any person in the House of Representatives or the United States Senate support the arbitrary firing of 6,000 veterans in the first 5 weeks of this administration? In my congressional district, we have around 15,000 federal employees, a third of whom are veterans. 5,000 veterans could stand to lose their jobs. When you hear about the firing of discretionary employees, you think that it might mean new employees or people who did a bad job. Quite the opposite. We heard from Albert. He'd been there for 10 years. He never got anything but exceptional performance reviews. Discretionary can mean you were just promoted to be a supervisor or a manager. And let me just close with this. I think it's critically important we keep our eyes on what they're doing with regard to the VA writ large. For my 6 years, there's been efforts to privatize and undermine VA healthcare and benefits. And there's no way we're going to let it happen. We're going to fight like hell for our veterans, for the resources that they've earned. And I hope that's always the case around here. And with that, I'll turn it over to my dear friend from Texas, Jaoquin Castro.
Thank you all. Good afternoon, y'all. I'm Jaoquin Castro. I'm very proud to represent my hometown, San Antonio, which, because of the number of military bases, military families, and veterans in our hometown, my hometown, it is known as Military City, USA. And since my first years in Congress, I've worked to make sure that Congress fulfills our promise to fight for veterans the way they have fought for us. 3 years ago, I was proud to join many of the folks here today to fight for the passage of the Honoring Our Pact Act, which was the largest expansion of VA benefits in more than 3 decades. Back then, in a sign of what would come later and what we see today, Republican senators tried to block the Pact Act from passing. You remember that there were a group of them who fist bumped on the Senate floor when temporarily they blocked its passage. Unfortunately, many of my Republican colleagues talk the talk about defending our veterans, but when it comes down to it, they don't walk the walk. For decades, the federal government has been one of the largest employers of American veterans, many of whom go on to work at the VA and serve their fellow veterans. Today, thousands of these heroes are on the firing line as Elon Musk attempts to dismantle the federal government. Let us be clear about this. When you attack a federal employees, when you indiscriminately fire the federal workforce, you are disproportionately harming veterans. You are targeting veterans who are employees of federal agencies. Elon Musk won't tell us how many veterans he's fired today. We don't have an exact number. But with veterans making up 30% of the federal workforce, we know that many are suddenly without a job and struggling to pay their bills. At the VA, those layoffs will mean longer wait times, rushed appointments, and reduced access to the care that our veterans have earned. None of us should stand for that. And I'm proud to support Congressman Tran's bill, which is a common sense step to protect our veterans, and I hope that Republican and Democratic colleagues will do the same. To veterans in San Antonio and across the United States, we're listening to you. We won't leave you behind, and we have your back. And now I'd like to introduce my colleague from the wonderful state of Ohio, Marcy Kaptur.
Good afternoon. Thank you so very much for joining us today, and a special thank you to Derek Tran, Congressman Tran, for bringing us all together, and to be with my colleagues as well as Congressman Castro, Congressman Levin. Thank you so very much for standing tall for our veterans. I come from a veterans family. I represent the 9th District of Ohio, and our family has served our nation for as long as our family has lived in the United States, over 3 generations, in the Marine Corps, in the Navy, in the Army, and all in heavy combat. There is not a single veteran in the Trump family going back 3 generations. Let's start right there. If you look across the government of the United States right now, about a third of the firings that have occurred because of DOGE and across the federal workforce, about a third have included veterans of our country under the guise of so-called efficiency. All right, from our part of the country in the Midwest, Marine veteran Andrew Lennox, a man who gave a decade of his life to defending our nation, was unceremoniously terminated from the Veterans Administration in Ann Arbor, Michigan, without cause, alongside 1,000 other veterans, Department of Veterans Affairs employees who were fired. Another 6,000 veterans have been fired nationwide from a variety of federal agencies. The people doing the firing never served a day in the U.S. military. Mr. Musk has just been here 22 years, and he's a citizen of 3 countries. I always ask myself the question, with the damage he's doing here, when push comes to shove, which country is he loyalty to? South Africa? Canada? Or the United States? And he's only been a citizen, I'll say again, 22 years. The veterans who were impacted by these firings were not poor performers. They were public servants, just like this fine gentleman right here. They were so-called probationary only because they had been promoted. And because we have security regulations in our government to make sure as you move up the chain of command, you are trustworthy. They were not newly hired. They were experienced. So what happened, again, was not about fiscal responsibility. Somehow it was about political purges and really callous management. The reckless workforce reduction mandated by Donald Trump and his unelected shadow president, Elon Musk, is nothing short of government overreach at its most utterly callous and dangerous levels. Veterans make up more than 30% of our federal workforce, yet they were among the first to be cast aside. The very agency tasked with serving them has been gutted in the name of political theater, just so they can get on TV, those folks over at the White House. This is a betrayal of our federal workers, of our heroic veterans, and the promises we made to them for all they gave to us. I call on my colleagues across the aisle to demand accountability and restore their jobs by sponsoring quickly Congressman Tran's bill. America deserves better. Our veterans deserve better. They made liberty for us possible, and they deserve better. I want to thank you all for being here today and helping us get out the word so our colleagues co-sponsor this bill by Congressman Tran as quickly as possible. Stand for our veterans, stand for liberty, and I will tell you, when you go up the street here, the largest contribution of the last century to America was the victory of liberty over tyranny. Liberty over tyranny that is celebrated at the World War II Memorial that was dedicated in 2004. Hundreds of thousands of Americans died, none of them from the family of the president, vice president of the United States, or Musk, all right? And now the author of the bill, myself, to create that memorial was driven by someone from her own community who was a veteran who served in tank command in France during the Second World War under General Patton. It was rough. It was rough. He came back, and he became a letter carrier for the rest of his life in Berkeley, Ohio. I can't tell you how proud I am of the Roger Durbin family for everything they gave to this country, and he wanted a place where the American people could come to reflect on the history of the country between the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, and the World War II Memorial. I ask every American to think about what has just happened to our veterans by the Trump administration and by Musk, and ask yourself, how hard are you fighting for liberty? I want to thank all of our veterans and those who are here with us today. God bless you.